Already we know how to write an expected output. For example, we want to write the question, write a program to accept two numbers from the user and display their sum. So for this, the expected output is so it will display like this: enter two numbers. So we have to get this message on the output screen from the beginning. Then after that we have to provide two values. For example, I am providing 50 and 70, and we have to press and enter. Once we will press and enter, then we have to display the result as sum is 120. So if I will come to this point, then why we have written like this? So our aim is to write a program on blue color screen, which we known as editor, and the result we will display on a black and white screen, to whom we will call as output screen. So the expected output, whatever we have written, that we want to display here. So now question is, the number of times I will run this program after writing on the basis of expected output, I will find that this message remain fixed, but here I have to provide these values from time to time. So that means the values whatever I have given here may be changed from person to person, or may be changed if we will run number of times. First time I have given 50, 70, next I will provide for example 10 and 5, next time I will provide for example 7 and 3, next time I will provide for example 120 and 90. So these values will be changed. Depending on this 50 and 70, we are getting an answer as 120. If I will provide 10 and 5, then it has to provide a sum as 15. Depending on the 7 and 3, it has to provide a sum as 10. Depending on this 120 and 90, it has to provide a sum as 210. So that means depending on these values, the sum always changed. But we will find that again this sum is not changed. So if any statement we want to display without making any changes on the output screen, we know that we can use printf. So if I want to display enter two numbers, then I can write like this: enter two numbers. So this will never change the number of times I will run the program. Similarly, if I want to display sum is, then I can also write printf sum is. So if we will write these two lines in our program and we will run, then as I said, these two lines will remain fixed and they will not make any change. Now the question is how we will take this input, because the values whatever we will provide from our keyboard is known as your input. So if we want to take any input, how to take input? So if we want to take any input, then we have to use a function known as your scanf. So what is scanf? Scanf is a function used to accept values from keyboard and store them in variable. So here two things we have applied. One is your values, second one is your variable. Let me discuss on that two. Before that, let me write the syntax. So this is scanf. So here we have to go for format specifier. For the time being, confirm that comma we have to apply, and along with that we have to use ampersand variable. So for the time being, confirm that this ampersand we are going to apply while we will go for scanf. So this is compulsory for the time being. Later on we will discuss what is ampersand. So now let me start with these words. First is values. So we have already seen that we have given some values like 50 and 70. So here 50 and 70 are values, and these are of numeric values. So on the basis of that numeric values, generally these are classified into two types, that is, according to math, number of other numeric values are there, but for the timing I just want to segregate that into two types. One is your whole numbers and second one is decimal or point numbers. Point numbers means the numbers after decimal point. So whole numbers are 23, 50, 192, 87, etc. Decimal values like 2.16, 3.14, 17.19, etc. But how we will know that which values we are going to provide to our computer? In order to know that, in C programming, whole numbers are known as integer numbers and decimal numbers are known as floating numbers. For the time being, just know this much. While we will progress, we will know how these numbers are classified. So for the time being, whole numbers are known as your integer numbers, decimal numbers are known as your floating numbers. In programming language of C, integer numbers are represented with a reserved word known as your int, and floating numbers are represented with a word known as your float. So on the basis of this int and float with reserved word, we can call them as data types. So according to this, what we have to say for int and float? So int and float are data types which allow us to take either whole number or which allow us to take other float number. Besides this int float, there are other data types also available which we will discuss later on. Now we know how to represent integer numbers, how to represent float numbers, but the question is where we will store them. If we can represent this 50 as integer, 70 as integer, on the basis of that 120 is also an integer. But the question is where we will store them or how we will allow them to represent in programming. So in order to store them, we have to take the help of a variable. So what is a variable? Is a temporary storage location in memory. So in memory means it is RAM, random access memory, which is temporary memory. So it is a temporary storage location in memory. So if I want to provide 50, then I have to create a variable which will allow me to store the value. For example, I can represent A as a variable, P as a variable, AR as a variable. So it is my choice how I want to represent that variable. But the question is how I come to know that A is going to hold an integer or P is going to store a point value or floating value. For that, we have to represent the variable declaration. Right. So what is a variable declaration? It indicates the type of the value the variable is going to hold. So what is the syntax? Syntax is data type and variable. Semicolon is compulsory. So now what is the syntax? Syntax is, suppose I want to write int n, then what is the meaning of this? N is a variable which will store an integer value. So from where we are getting this integer is coming because of this one. Similarly, if I will write float r, then what is the meaning of this? R is a variable which can store the floating value. Right? Now we know how to declare a variable. Now the next part is we have to store value to a variable. Store value in a variable. So we can store the values in two ways. One, directly providing to variable, and the second one is we have to accept from keyboard and then store in variable. So now whenever we are going to accept from keyboard, as already I said, we have to use a scanf function. So that we will discuss later on. For the time being, let us start with assigning the value or storing the value directly. So whenever we are directly storing a value, in a variable, then it is known as assigning value. So what is the syntax? Syntax means again the same rules and regulations. Syntax means the variable is equal to value. So already we have declared a variable, I am assuming. So n is a variable where I can store 50. R is a variable I can store 2.5. So what is n? N is of integer type What is R? R is of float type. So I can store the values directly. Now we can also perform the same like this. That means the above statements are like this: int n is equal to 50. So this is variable declaration. This is variable initialization or assigning value to variable. So we can combine these two also. So we can write like this: int n is equal to 50. So if n is equal to 50, we will write like this. Then this is known as variable definition, which is equals to variable declaration plus initialization. So what will happen internally with these two lines and what will happen internally with this one line, we will discuss later on. Now we know what is a variable. We know how to store a value to a variable. But the question is how the computer comes to know that you have used an integer value or you have used a float value. So for that, C programming provide us a facility which is known as format specifier. So if you want to use integer, then you have to represent it with a symbol %d. If you want to write float, you have to go for %f. So if other data types will come, then we will discuss. So that's why these are known as your data type, and this is known as format specifier. So now what we have discussed till, what is a variable, how we have assigned value to a variable, what is format specifier, if all these things are known to us, then why not we will display the value of the variable. So in order to display any statement or message, we know that we can take the help of printf function. So by using printf function, we can also display our value of a variable. So for the syntax is printf, then within double quote we have to write format specifier comma variable. Remember, while you are using printf, there is no need to use a %, but while you will go for scanf, % is compulsory. Now example. So already I have stored some values in some variables. So I can write printf %d comma n. So it will print the value of n, which is 50, as we have stored here. Now if I will write printf %f r, it is going to provide a value of 2.5. So now taking this, let us consider a question. Write a program to assign a value to a variable and display it specifically integer value. Right? So now let us write a program. So this is our program. Hash include stdio.h, hash include conio.h, then void main, then first line int n, then n equal to 50, then we will write printf %d comma n. So it will display the value. So in order to make our screen clear, let me write CLRSCR. Remember, CLRSCR is used to clear your screen, and if you will declare any variable in a programming like C, it will always be the first line. Or we can say that CLRSCR will always be available after declaration of variable. And now we have to go for getch. So now let us check whether the screen or the program is providing the value or not. So this is my Turbo C++. Let me start. Alt Fn. So this is hash include stdio.h, hash include conio.h, it's void main, int n is equal to 50, printf %d comma n, getch. Let me make the screen clear also. CLRSCR. So now Alt F9, success, Control F9. So you will get 50. So from this we know that the value will be printed by using printf. But I want to represent a message, that is value is. So I can write like this. So if I want to display a message, then I can associate that message here. That is printf value is. So because already we know how to display a message, so simply I just want to display value is. Let me display that. So now it is printf value is. So let me provide a space, otherwise the value will be closer to is. So now we are getting value is 50. So now the question is, can I combine these two lines? Question is, can I combine these two lines? Answer is yes. How? So instead of writing these two lines, we will write printf value is %d comma n. So that means if you want to display a value, then always you have to associate a format specifier or more than one format specifier, along with that one or more than one variable to display the value. So this is how we are going to display the answer. So let me erase, and now if I will run, the same answer I will have. So let me change the value. Instead of 50, I just want to make this one as 550 or 590. So again compile, success, run. So as I said, along with the declaration, I can also make variable definition. So along with declaration, I just want to add a value as 750. So now if I will run the program, this will display the value. So from this, we know how to display a value. Now I am providing a task for you. Try to display two integer values and two floating values. So first try 1 then if you are confirmed, then try two values to display. So thank you for this much.